Hello there. I haven't done a Carologue for a while, but I'm just driving back from my daughter's school. And I've been working the last few days on a tributary of the resilient artist, which exists on my Substack as well as a publication under work by Elliot Cowan. Because I still think this all feeds into the same raison d'etre of the resilient artist, what I am, what my brand is, who I am as a creator, actor, writer, maker and creative person all round, and who you could be as well, because I think this is all part of what it is to survive and remain mentally well balanced and content with meaning, purpose and focus and forward momentum, rather than stagnation, fear, freezing, doubt and inhibition. All things I've felt in spades over the years, but things I'm jettisoning from my life through a daily practice of yoga, writing, creativity and mindset, which is all about the resilient artist. And I'm tapping in, I'm leaning down into the things that I know give me good strength in that regard. And like I say, that is a daily practice of yoga. That is good sleep. That is good nutrition. But then it is me sitting down and writing and connecting with people, with ideas, with characters, with stories, whilst I wait for a self-tape to arrive, whilst I wait for a job to land and for me to decide whether it's going to be better to do than what I'm doing on a daily basis at the moment. Finances may dictate that it is, but creativity, agency, control and output may not. They may be less well developed in a job that is offered me than what I'm able to create for myself. There's a lot of buzz right now around the idea of vertical series, micro series. TikTok has just released a secondary app in the US and Brazil called Pine app or Pine TV. And that's to support what is happening massively in China and is transferring into Hollywood right now as the new guard, the new order. Now, I worked through the Hollywood ecosystem for the last 15 years, I'd say. I benefited from the platforms that were originated in America and have poured money into the UK film industry and the European film industry when we were more integrated for many years. And I've been the beneficiary of contracts from there that I relied on for a certain lifestyle and creative output and identity, which is all changing. I don't know if you know, but I'm sure you do if you're an actor. Hollywood is hugely changing. And some people say that it is dying, that people don't go to the movies so much. People aren't watching streamers so much. People are watching YouTube more than they are these platforms. And we as actors who have lined up to be considered for parts in prestige TV made by these platforms, made by this massive money, are now scratching our balls, wondering what's happening, where it's gone. I have had good bouts of work, and I've also had recently loads and loads of good auditions last year, but suddenly things just sort of disappear on us, don't they? Since COVID, maybe since 2022 or 3, so certainly since the strike, I know things have just dropped away, and they come back with a push, they come back with a certain flurry, but then something else happens and the rug is pulled from beneath our feet and we're left high and dry again. We're out of control. We have no control. All these macro things move above our heads, and we as the little people at the end of the ecosystem are going hungry. And it's right to say that Hollywood is changing, but not necessarily dying. What I picked up on is that there is huge investments going on in brands coming into Hollywood, setting up studios, setting up massive relationships with big studios to create platforms of content with Hollywood talent, Hollywood executive. And that looks like a huge reinvestment in Hollywood in a different way. That there won't just be Apple TV and Netflix TV and so on and so forth, that there's going to be Chicken Filet TV and the New York Giants TV or Walmart TV. They're all going to have studios that is producing content that might well be drama. It's going to be entertainment. It will be long form to pull in their niche audiences, their slice of the demographic. But I don't believe that's going to mean that everything's going to be made on the same level that it was when I did Foundation, when I did Da Vinci's Demons, when I did Black Cake, when I did Peaky Blinders even. I don't believe that it's going to be on that level. It'll be on a level that's more consumable, cheaper, more influenced by YouTube than it is the big TV blockbusters. So we have to prepare ourselves for that. And we also have to acknowledge that our smartphones are the main platform or screen with which we consume and engage content, okay? And so the idea that we're going to get another renaissance on big plasma televisions or indeed cinema screens and be able to make a living that's going to support our middle class aspirational lifestyles, or families, or even young actors looking to buy a flat maybe if they're bloody lucky enough to in London, all of that is not going to come from the sort of contracts I had 10-15 years ago that allowed me to achieve that. It's all going to go small screen. So what's happening is that I'm having to completely readjust my mindset and my identity as an actor. And that's because I was trained classically. I was educated traditionally. And so when I arrived in the industry in 2001, as you know, the back end of Gen X, I thought that everything got done in a sort of quite prestige elevated way. Even terrestrial TV in Britain was somehow a sort of rarefied thing. To be involved in Poirot, Marple, or any of the series that the higher end series I got involved in, they were rarefied. You couldn't access them via social media or any other kind of open casting. You had to be on the track, you had to be on the road to get there. And even though the production values were lower than they have been since, they were still, that was still rarefied, exciting. And I had to have training, I had to have contacts, I had to have profile of a certain kind in my industry to make that work. And that is what I traded on and thought and expected for myself to work and to crack and to break when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And I coupled that with theatre in order to make my sort of give myself more experience and depth of experience, but also a certain artistic kudos. Got seen by a lot of casting directors and directors who still employ me on that basis now. And then I snapped into TV and I did stuff for cables and streamers when they started coming in, and my income shot up, and I was able to enjoy a bit more profile, a bit more sort of exclusivity through the surge of the golden age television. Now that's gone. That's changing. That's funneling down to being so selective and so intermittent and sort of exploiting of income and remuneration and compensation we get. It's broken up into very meager portions. That pie is crumbled, and therefore you get smaller pieces. You don't get a good slice of a big pie now. You get smaller crumbs from a smaller pie, and that's hard. And that whole idea of prestige, exclusivity, of rarefied separation between you as performer and audience and your status as a classically trained individual with thousands of hours of experience, that currency is reduced because it's intersecting with the democratized version of consumption that we are all enjoying. I watch YouTube as much as the next person. As a 50-year-old man almost, I'm really entrenched and have been for years in all sorts of content. And I'm finding a great strength from seeing other people younger than me normally who are coming up through their version of what I had 15 years ago. And like I say, it's moved off the big streamers and it's coming into YouTube, it's coming into content creation, and it's coming into verticals, which is of course what you're watching now. And it might make you shudder to think of yourself in one, a soap, or two, a piece of YouTube content, or three, in something that's vertical and not 16 by 9 but 9 by 16. You might, as a trained actor like me, think, how could I possibly? Well, you're right. And what I used to say about doing soaps here in this country on regular TV, which was always with a caveat of, there by the grace of God will I need to, but that's not my intention. The idea of doing something on a phone like that is potentially horrendous. But I have to face the reality that the industry is changing, and at the moment there's a huge surge of money going on in that area, whereas in my traditional employing area it's been reduced. And so I have to confront the fact that if I want to stay acting, if I want to stay earning money and not just doing it for the sheer love of it once every year on stage perhaps, or in a bit part on something that pays me a few grand for a few days work, and then I go back to something else. If I want to capitalize on what are my talents and my 25 years of training, of experience and so forth, then I have to find my place in the new market. I've had to do that before, I guess, but it's happened more easily because it's conjoined with my identity, or my previous identity of, classical theatre actor, moving into high-end television, of fantasy and of sci-fi and elevated fiction, you know what I mean? That worked well. That was an easy trade, and America wanted it and paid me well for it. It's changed again, and I have to go where my place in that niche is. My niche in the niche. My niche in the surge, in the boom. Because this is hot right now. There is more money than there is content, than creators. And what I've got in my back pocket, which came from another period of angst and worry and re-identification, is my leaning into a part that I played at the end of my 20s as I turned 30, which was Mr. Darcy in Lost in Austin on ITV, with a wonderful cast, lovely director, great writer, new production with Mammoth Screen, who are now huge, but made some great friends, and it was a great break for me. Great fun playing Mr. Darcy. At the same time, I was playing Henry V at the Royal Exchange. That was a complete apotheosis in my career. Little did I know it at the time, but I knew I was enjoying it. I knew I was lucky, and I knew I was tired. But that was a heyday, and it stayed with me because people loved it, and because that character sung for me, and there are other reasons. But to cut a long story short, I've got over 40,000 followers on TikTok. I've got 2,500 followers on Instagram as just Mr. Darcy. And I now have a Substack with a few followers growing there, because I have tapped into that part of my creativity, my voice, through that character that connects with an audience that already exists. Mr. Darcy is a phenomenon. He's an icon. He exists far beyond Lost in Austin or any other singular production of Pride and Prejudice. He's been with us for 250 years, and we are lucky to have had him. Well, not quite that long, 13 years or something. Her birthday, however, is 250 years ago, just now in December. So I know that there's some depth of audience and connection and love and passion, and he carries a lot for a lot of people. He carries a lot for me, and I found a way of presenting him which is unique to me, and that mashup is as important and as similar to me transitioning from doing Henry V on stage in the evening to being picked up and then dumped into a show called Lost in Austin, where I played Mr. Darcy in the morning. And that show was postmodern, screwed around with the idea. But do you see what I mean? I was playing classical, proper, traditional craft and love and Shakespeare in that at one moment, and the following day I was on TV doing something transitional, and I was making a career out of that because that was what was wanted, and those were the platforms available at the time. I can do the same now because Darcy and that literature gives me as much material of that kind for my talents to engage with, my brain to engage with, my artistry to engage with, that I can then twist into not an ITV drama anymore, but twist into a vertical platform. And because verticals are getting invested in, that's how I'm going to pitch it. That's going to be the thing. I'm making more stuff around Darcy, stuck in my home as Elliot, doing DIY and other things around my house, as a fish out of water, a man out of time, trying to figure out how to be a middle-aged man now, 25 years on from his marriage, without his wife, somewhat estranged or divorced, and making the best of it in his life that he can. And I think that's an important thing for me. That means a lot to me, and I can see where I have the control and artistic freedom to explore explore my agency, explore the audience who like it. And there are those who like it. As soon as I post on Mr. Darcy, on TikTok or otherwise, people come straight back to me with, "Where have you been? I love this. This is the best stuff on the internet. This, oh God, I love Mr. Darcy." Or they start adopting his voice. "Oh my good man, where have thou been perambulating all these days?" Whereas other things I post that are perhaps more worthy and more, career-based, don't have that feedback. It's there, but it's not as vociferous, as Darcy might say. So I've got to smell that, and I've got to follow that whiff into the kitchen and start cooking something up because there is over here, there's money. I don't know where it is yet, but there is money out there. Verticals are happening. They are looking for new content. It won't just be cheesy romance soaps, although that obviously appeals to a certain demographic. It's going to be something else. It's going to fracture out into different parts, different audiences, as we all become more familiar with that way of interacting with 1 minute segments, 1 minute little episodes towards a larger narrative, a film length narrative. They're doing 90 episodes per series of 1 minute each to tell a story about how, Harry met Sally, basically. And I think Darcy's got a great future into that, should we get to that level. But at the moment, I have to work with what I've got, which is me. Me and my time, me and my camera, me and my editing software, me and my brain, me and my writing, me and my daily practice. And all of that gives me, as you can probably see, great joy, great hope, great inspiration, and great resilience. So look at the day. It's a shitty day today. It's raining. It's a bit cold. It's mid-January. I've not had a call from my agent since the beginning of the year other than Happy New Year. All the auditions I was doing for the back end of last year have all disappeared. I've not heard from many of them. I got a couple of callbacks last year, but everything else has gone completely silent. And I could just be sitting at home just waiting for the phone to ring, trying to keep, chipper by picking up my kids and doing a bit of work around the house or something. But fuck that. I'm 50 this year. I've got to have some control. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm fucking good. So are you. And you know it, and other people know it. It's just right now, the industry that we relied on, that sucked us all in, is shrinking and changing and coming out a different shape. And you've got to find your place on that shape. And that's what I'm doing right now. And I want you to do the same, because you're as good as I am. You've got more of certain things than I have. So, you've got to find your niche. And I know it seems reductive. I know it seems demeaning to go from thinking of, Don Mar Stage, Oliver Stone movies, RSC National, Apple TV, Netflix, Fox, BBC dramas, Peter Kosminski through to Michael Grandage, blah, 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 blah. But some of those guys are struggling too. Some of those guys are scratching their balls wondering where all the fun has gone. They're having to reshift. They're having to pivot. And they've done it already before if they're further on in their lives than we are. So if they have to do it, then you've got to do it, right? And who gives a shit? Who's watching apart from the people who like you? So if you give the people who like you what they want, and you find a way of doing it with dignity, like I can with Darcy, because he makes my brain itch. I can write stuff for him that I can't write for myself. I can write stuff for him to say and think that I can't for myself. He's a comic foil. He's a human vent. He is an artistic conduit for me to get some shit off my chest and to practice a craft that I've been practicing for years, and to connect with an audience who give me some feedback right away, rather than casting directors and directors with all the best will in the world who give me no feedback. And when I end up in a production, it happens in that there's feedback, but it's never about me. It's always about someone bigger. So fuck it. I'm going to get down and dirty with the real guys and hear what they have to say. This is the reason why the Resilient Artist exists, for me, as a target to fire these thoughts and this energy out to something and someone who it might land with and get you going, and just change your mindset into something more productive, because it's more productive, more confident, more realized, because that's what it's about. It's not just about waiting for the one thing. You've got to have 5, 6, 10 things going that are representing you, your truth. All right, good luck. I'm the Resilient Artist, and so are you.